to text him. I mean, WhatsApp him. I told him to please let me know when he got settled in, but of course he didn't.
So, quick question: will we have to record this video if it's streaming all the way to YouTube, or is it automatically uploaded?
I'm gonna record it just in case because I needed to be able to have a video done live to see if you could record it in YouTube as well. I don't know if YouTube is like Facebook that when you go live, it stops. Oh, 1 second. It's wait. It's feeding back and forth. Hold on. I know y'all can hear. Okay. So this is what I need somebody to do. I need someone of you all to go into the YouTube channel and see if you can hear us because I have to mute one of the two. And YouTube is playing like Facebook does. It's playing behind the Zoom.
Gotcha. About to check now.
So go in really quick and make sure that you can hear us. I know you guys can see us here, and I'm getting ready to share it out to Facebook.
Go back to the moment.
I like this way better, y'all.
We are live. It says we're live, so let's see what it's saying.
Can you hear us?
Yes, we are heard.
Excellent.
And I see with Gina. Hello.
Oh my God, y'all, this is like
we look
the
good.
Easiest stuff ever.
Yeah.
We look good.
I want this to.
Let me copy this link and post it.
Somebody go ahead and be sure to keep up the YouTube in case people come directly here to share in the group. Come on, give me my groups. I am so excited. I am so excited, y'all. This is like crazy easy. It's unbelievable. Why were we not before?
What are we using now? StreamYard?
YouTube.
We are going right to our own YouTube channel, which we should have been doing all this time. Zoom will connect to YouTube, and YouTube will connect right to the group, to the Facebook.
Sweet 10-pound baby.
So you don't necessarily need to be on YouTube, since as long as people can hear us and you confirm that people can hear us. I would rather for someone to monitor Facebook in case people are watching it there and comment there, or want to. I will keep the YouTube up
because people might comment on it. Somebody might. I think one of us will look at the Facebook and the YouTube. One of each.
Keep YouTube up, and one of you all put Facebook up in case people are commenting.
I'll do Facebook because people can live comment on YouTube.
And it literally says we right now have 2 people watching us on YouTube.
Hello, how you doing? Those 2 people.
Hi. All right, somebody let me confirm that we are also live in Facebook, and we will give people a little while to come in. Hello, Miss Regina.
Jana.
Honey, I feel our sun kissed, y'all. I need to go sit out at somebody's pool though, so I can get me some more sun and vitamin E. I didn't even have to sleep in with the air conditioner on. I just opened it every night. Ugh. I want to go back. Okay, I'm back.
So question, are you streaming on both Facebook and YouTube?
Yeah.
From your personal page?
Nope.
Because I'm only seeing YouTube right now.
Okay. Let me try it again. Share group. The Back to Love movement. I clicked on there. And it says post to Facebook. Let me know if it comes up. Everybody just give us a little bit. You know, sometimes this is our first time social media friends and going through YouTube. Everything is running beautifully with Zoom and YouTube. The interface is perfect. We're just trying to make sure that we are in the Facebook group as well. So everyone just be patient with us. We will get started here shortly. I'm actually going to go right into the group and post the link now as well.
So well, the link's already in the group. That's what happens. What you just posted before, it's just
video.
Yes, but it streams to YouTube. There is no one where it goes to Facebook. It just posts the link.
Okay, so it's posting the link. So if someone wants to go into the group and let everyone know that they should click on that link to join us.
I'm on it.
In YouTube, and you may want to, yep, it will be, that would be very helpful, excuse me. I'm telling you guys, I was not back in this city for more than a half a day and my allergies came right back. It was so good not to have allergies for a week. Oh, but you know what? Yeah, it just shares it as a link. I was trying to see if it was actually doing something live. So, but they see that we are on. They see us three. Did you see that?
Yes. So, we are live.
So yeah, if you want to go in and put in there, here, I'll do it in the comments.
Cold and black line, yeah.
One second, and then we'll get started on click. Did I spell click right?
Conversation.
Join us on our YouTube channel. Okay. So as people see it, they come on in. Like I said, as far as I can tell, on YouTube, you have visitors. So we are going to go ahead and get this thing started. Welcome everyone. Thank you guys so much for joining us today. You are, of course, communing with Back to Love movement. Myself, I am Dawn Wisdom, the Psalmist Crooks. And I have, of course, as always, an amazing cast of brothers and sisters with me today. These brothers and sisters make me proud. So I will give them an opportunity to say hello to the people and brief introduction, and we'll go ahead and get started.
Ladies first.
Ms. Regina, you want to go?
Good evening, everyone. My name is Regina Pooh. I am a native Cincinnati, motivational speaker, best-selling author, educator, and sister friend to Don the Wisdom Crooks.
And I'm a Poetry Phillips. I'm a poet, activist, and so happy to be here to talk about this much needed topic to discuss.
And I'm Soul of Soul Composed and Soul, MC, poet, writer, musician, all around connector of peoples. I'm a little bit new to this conversation, though I have an idea, but I'm ready to dive into it. So let's go.
Excellent. I like soul. I'm also not new to the conversation, to the topic. I have a very familiar with what the system is, but have never really discussed it in this capacity. And I'm really happy to have a poetry with us because she actually works in the system, and so she's going to be able to give us some insights. Please, if there's anyone who works in the criminal justice system or the education system and you have comments, please share them with us. I will be monitoring comments in the YouTube channel, so by all means, please make sure that you share with us. So many people, I think, have heard the term the prison, the school or classroom. You've heard it interchangeably, school or classroom to prison pipeline. More than likely, if you have children in the public school system or have any interest at all in criminal justice, you definitely have at least heard the term before. This is going to get heavy. Earlier, it's going to get heavy. It's going to be real. But it's also going to be out of love. And when we get to the end, what we hope to do is offer some information of how to begin to sort of turn that tide for our children. So I want to really quickly just read a definition of what the school to prison pipeline is, in case you have not have about it, but have never heard it defined or are not sure what it is that we're talking about. The school to prison pipeline is a systemic process through which students are pushed out of schools and into the criminal justice system through the overuse of out-of-school suspensions, expulsions, overly harsh discipline, and in-school arrests that often lead to detention centers where they are often imprisoned throughout their formative years. In other words, it is a process of criminalizing youth that is carried out by disciplinary policies. There's some words I want you all to hold on to this, okay? In other words, it is a process of criminalizing youth that is carried out by disciplinary policies and practices within the schools that put students into contact with law enforcement. The vast majority of these arrests are for in most cases, the students are simply being disrupted. Arrests are the first and most preferred means of discipline rather than addressing these problems with empathetic means like therapy, counseling, or just exploration by school officials and social workers into the root of the problem. The system favors incarceration over education and disproportionately affects Black and brown youth. No shock there. As well as those with disabilities. That was new. It often starts as early as preschool, and criminal records are seldom expunged after adulthood. Research shows that removing children from school does not improve their behavior. Instead, it greatly increases the likelihood that they'll drop out and wind up behind bars. White children are often counseled. Black and brown children, and often when they are counseled, fault is found with the parents, and the children are often removed from the home and end up in the system anyway. The whole quarter end of that was not a definition. It was information I thought would be pertinent to start this conversation. I have friends that work at JFS, and the system is overran with Black and brown children who are removed from home, sometimes for just cultural misunderstandings. Does that make sense when I say cultural misunderstandings, family?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And so it seems that a lot of roles that our children take who may be having some disciplinary issues, it's not that there aren't issues, most of the roads lead them to prison. And that is what we mean by, we could call it grade school to prison pipe. All right, that's our introduction. Let's get at it. Let's talk about it. What in that broad definition, what stood out for you? What kind of thoughts do you all have? No, it's heavy, right? Breathe, count to 10.
Yes. Go ahead. So.
I definitely can attest to this. I won't get into specific details, but I had an incident when I was younger where it was not so much about finding the issue, but it was immediately brung into the idea that police will get involved. So that's only one example of where we're just treated different. We're just very treated different in how we are looked at as just people, like not even as children, just looked at as kind of like just, I don't really know how to describe it, because it's kind of hard to describe. Why would you look at it as a child like that? But I'm kind of getting off gears. But a lot of it feels like makes sense when you said the grade school, because it's almost like we're being primed from the birth to become prisoners in one way, shape, or form. And I saw this video on Instagram that talks about how when it was illegal to start lynchings, you can see a correlation of how increased imprisonment among Black and brown people rise. So I just feel like, looking at it that way, it was always some kind of system, even down from the cotton fields, of making us to keep us down. If it didn't work this way, they find another way. That way doesn't work anymore, so we find another way. So it pretty much feels like we're repeating the same thing, just from a different angle.
You hit so many historical nails on the head right there, which we will definitely dive into a little bit later. But what you are speaking is absolutely true. The plan for Black people to be a commodity in this nation means to achieve the plan changed as we changed, as society changed. So yeah, definitely. Ladies, any feedback? I mean, how does that make you feel when I read that definition, where it says the system favors incarceration over education? That stands out.
Yeah.
What do you all? Yeah.
I have been physically sick all day. Like, I've spent much of the day just looking at different podcasts and listening to different views, and it's sickening. It really is. One thing that I found was that one time being suspended as a youth, you're 10 times more likely to end up in the juvenile justice system. And that just hurt my heart so much, because of some of the things that they were being arrested for or suspended for. It's definitely criminalizing our youth. It's definitely biased. And it's just, I heard someone say it's really a civil rights issue, that if you think of it on that level.
How so? How did they?
Because you're doing things like they talked about in the school. Some schools actually have holding cells for kids. They talked about how, small little things were being just blown out of proportion. Like a child crying, you could get suspended for. Drawing on a desk. One girl was saying she was drawing on a desk and she ended up getting suspended for and having to. It was crazy things that they were having this interaction with law enforcement that it just shouldn't have been. And then even when they were being arrested or withheld, one of them was handcuffed to the little slot where you slide the food in and out. She was handcuffed to that. You know, we don't think about it. Now we're seeing more awareness is coming about what is going on, especially with our Black men. But let's take it back further with our children. And I think a lot of things are happening with our children that they're not coming home, they're not telling the whole story of what is going on in school. So we don't even fully know everything that's being done to them, for real.
Yeah, I mean, that's one of the things we're going to talk about at the end is how do we combat it? How do we defeat that system? And some of it is going to be being extremely involved. Mm-hmm. Being extremely involved with what's happening with your children in school, and being aware of their inability to resolve internal conflict or issues in a way that will keep them out of that. And a lot of times it's because we don't know. So if you see your child struggling with that, you might want to get some help on how to resolve conflict and how to resolve emotional difficulty, you know, how to resolve that for yourself in the moment. If you don't know, I can't share that with your children, but we'll talk about that. That's a whole result situation. I want to make sure I hear from everyone on just sort of this topic in general. Like, what does it take in your head? Regina, any thoughts?
It's funny that a part of the definition was, or the part of the realization was that children who have disabilities are being thrown into this. And you've been in my home, you know me personally. And you know I have a son who has Asperger's. And I can remember when he was about 3 or 4 years old and we came to the acknowledgement of what we were dealing with. And we made a conscious decision that we were going to move into a county that was going to give my son everything he needed. That was number one. We made a conscious decision. Hell or high water, spaghetti all week, whatever it took. You know, mama don't go shopping. We don't get a new car for 7-10 years, whatever it took. I didn't care that we didn't live near our parents. I didn't care that I didn't care that and don't shoot me for this, but I'm talking about me and mine. I didn't care that my neighbors didn't look like me. I didn't care. What I cared about was leveling the playing field for my child. And so that was number one. The second thing we did when Terrence became of school age every year, because he had an IEP, we had several meetings throughout the year. And so the very first meeting when school started, my conversation started as follows. I don't hold you with the weight of solely educating my child. You are here to enhance whatever it is I teach him. And together we're going to create success. Can you or can you not do this? Yeah. The third thing I did was let them know I unequivocally know my child. You are not on any given day going to tell me what Terrence does and does not do. You'll never be able to tell me Terrence was disrespectful. No, ma'am, no, sir, you won't. And so I think sometimes we accept, consciously or unconsciously, whether we are allowing the fate of history or perception crush us, we accept the fear and the biases that are put upon our children. And we don't have to accept that. And Don, you've been in my house. You've talked to my son. My son holds the door open for you. He'll ask you, Miss Dawn, are you good? Miss Dawn, can I get you something to drink? Highly intelligent, but when he was 4 and we didn't know, 3 or 4, and we didn't know what we were dealing with, here's the last thing I want to tell anyone that is listening. If you have that type of child, I need us to stop being afraid to find the answer. Because I believe there are a lot of us as adults, as young adults, who have something, and we've accepted what we've been labeled as because nobody took the time to really figure out what it is. You know, I can remember being young and kids, and that they would always, and I look back on that now and go, he wasn't bad. He really had autism, because we didn't know. In our community, it was taboo. But you have to think about this. In our community, and I'm probably gonna get crucified for this, you know, I really don't care. But in our community, we've had a history of struggles with things, because there's no other way out, and the sense of hopelessness crushes us so much. There's drug abuse, alcoholism. I'm not saying it doesn't happen in every other community. Every other community is not afforded the opportunity of privilege on site. They're afforded that. We have to fight for ours. So they are given the benefit of the doubt where we aren't. Mm-hmm. And so alcoholism, drug abuse, all of that is how they see us. They don't see it as counseling. They see it as a community that just can't be helped. And I'm saying, stop, take ownership for whatever it is you got going on, and get some help, because at the core of it, we're all human. At the core of it, we fix it all the same. Did my son's teachers look like him? Absolutely not. Did they understand him? Absolutely. And you know why they understood him? Because they know he had that mama that was going to be sitting up there. Call me. I don't care. I became I had to work too, but I made sure I was the classroom parent. I made sure that I came and read to the class once a month. I made sure that I brought things to the PTA or carnival day, or made sure he came to the school dance and his older sister was his date. I made time for that. And because I think we get so caught up in the grind that we forget about who we're grinding for. And then our children get caught up in this perpetual system and cycle. I've seen it happen in my family, and I was refusing to let it happen in my children.
I want to just build a little bit on a couple of the things that you said. We talk about disabilities, right? And as you all know, I work for Head Start, and disabilities is beyond physical, right? We all know now. Although there was a time when people talked about disabilities being predominantly physical, and that's where this idea of mental disabilities came into play, where you had these ideas of talking about autism, and which really are more, I don't even know if I would call those mental disabilities. I think things like Asperger, and autism, I think they're more social disabilities in terms of sort of just being able to read social contexts and those kind of things. And they just function in the social world very differently. And then you did have mental disabilities with things like bipolarism, but you also have behavioral disabilities. And I think that we need to be very clear that when our children are quote unquote acting out, we had a 3-year-old run a chair. That's not normal of a 3-year-old, right? But what he had was a certain amount of anger that he didn't know how to articulate, so he couldn't process it. And of course, anybody else or in an authoritarian position is going to say he's just a bad kid, when really he just needed to be taught how to travel, how to navigate his emotions, right? And so I think we have to, when they look at our children, though, in terms of behaviors, they need behavioral disabilities. They just assume that our kids are bad, and it truly is a disability. And if they were able to look at it in that respect, I think that, I don't know, I'm going to say this. Adding to the other part, I'm tying this to something else that you said, that what they see us as, they're not going to see another culture, right? And so a white child can do the same types of things in the classroom, be disruptive in the classroom, and there's an immediate empathy. Oh my God, something's going. Get mommy help. There's this whole train of thought that occurs. They recognize that there is some form of trauma, right? It's amazing to me that our babies who are growing up watching Black men die on television every day do not get the benefit of being traumatized, right, by what they are experiencing. If we're gonna investigate behavioral disabilities as it relates to trauma, how dare you not? consider that Black children are being traumatized, and some of that disciplinary that's coming from what they're experiencing every day in their neighborhoods. Poverty is trauma. It's a so yeah. I'm all the way. I agree with you, Regina. I forgot that you would be a perfect person too for this podcast because of your child.
And you know, and I'm not saying it please don't misunderstand me. I'm not saying TJ is perfect. I'm not saying that, but none of us are. Right? I'm saying that we took the patience and we took the hits and we took some setbacks, because sometimes to make sure your legacy survives, you got to sacrifice. You know, my husband grew up without a father in his home. I grew up without a father in my home. So here we are trying to parent and neither one of us know what a daddy is. And all of a sudden, boom, we get a child with a special need. And I'm like, well, what the hell is this, God? You know, I'm like, you really, you did this to me right now? For real? Like, are you serious? I almost became angry. And I'm saying this to help someone who might have this child and you're feeling angry. But when I came out of myself enough, TJ has taught me more about patience and compassion, and what the boy graduated high school on the honors roll, on the honor roll, on the dean's list. Do you understand what I'm saying? But it wasn't because his mom and daddy was so perfect. And it wasn't because, but we sacrificed. And I know it, Dawn, don't fight me for this. And I love you. As much as I wanted to stay in my community couldn't serve my child.
That's a hard thing we're going to talk about.
Because you took the money and did something else with it instead of really giving them resources to handle it. I knew if I moved into Butler County, y'all knew the government was watching y'all, and you were going to take care of every single, if you got $142 a week for this child, that child was going to get $142 of services every week. And you were going to be able to track it. I was going to be able to track it. He was going to have PT, OT, and speech, whatever he needed to get it done. I also think, as we talk about this and as far as disabilities are concerned, I also think a part of police training and justice system training needs to be special needs.
Yeah, I think they don't need to be handling any of it.
I think if they encounter it, they need to know how to handle it, God. I think if they encounter it, they need to know how to handle it. Because you can't tell TJ, you can't say to my son, shut up, and ask him his name, because he's going to say, well, do you want me to shut up or do you want to know my name? You can't say that to him. No.
I'm not saying, so here's the deal. If it's not a violent situation, there is no psychotic break that has occurred.
Girl, selling CDs outside the store wasn't violent. And you saw what happened to him.
Right, but we're talking about children. So if you're dealing with a child who is diagnosed in any way, I think police should not be involved.
But how do the police know? What code do they have that the child has issues? They're not sensitive enough to read them.
If it's in a school setting, the school knows. Because we screen for it in preschool.
And we're assuming that we assume that they're taking copious notes. For it. Huh? We assume that they're taking copious notes and shares the information.
It's not that. A child, listen, so the way that this thing works, and particularly in Head Start, all children are screened for every developmental, social, behavioral, and mental, physical disability. They have to be in order to be fully considered registered or enrolled in the program. It's a service that's offered to them. And we usually work with places like Help Me Grow or Children's Hospital, right? So it goes on that child's record, whether the parent chooses to acknowledge it, work with the school to get, the preschool to get an IEP. This is why preschool is so detrimental for your children. You cannot start them in kindergarten because there's no guarantee in kindergarten that they're going to get that. Preschool is set up for those screens. And believe it or not, you can tell if a child is autistic by the time the child is 2 or 3, if they are in a setting of professionals who are looking at children for that purpose, right? And so once it goes on a record, and that record follows them from the time and we send them. We send the records from Head Start to whatever. We do a whole year of what they call a transition out of Head Start. And so we are communicating with the public school system. We find out where the child is going to enroll within 3 months of their last year of preschool starting. It's a whole program called Innovation. And their record, their physical record and mental record, education record, attendance record, all of it follows them. So no school is unaware if a child's been diagnosed, or even if there is a concern. Check this out. It doesn't even have to be a diagnosis where there has to be an outcome, where there has to be therapy or an outcome. If there is a concern, our family service workers have to know that, and that record moves with them. So if you or your child is in a school system, first of all, parents need to know that. Parents should know that your child has a record at 2 years old. They have an academic record at 2 years old if they're in preschool. You should be aware of what's in that record. You should be aware of who's accessing that record, not just his doctors. You sign a consent. You don't notice what you're signing, but you are signing a consent that those records can be shared. Out the gate.
The only one I said that couldn't be shared was you couldn't videotape my son. That's the only one you couldn't.
Right. You have to give permission to videotape the children in the classroom for promotional purposes and all of that kind of stuff. So the record is there. So if a school system is neglectful and assuring that every adult who has to come into contact with that child is unaware that there is even a concern, then that school system needs to be checked. But these are the things our parents need to be aware of what's happening. When you go to preschool and you go to Head Start and they have you fill out that 30-page packet, if you're not sure what that 30-page packet is that you sign and get a copy of it, take it home. Take it to somebody who can help you comprehend everything, single thing you sign. Be less concerned about getting them out the house.
Yes.
More concerned about the 30 pages you sign. Go ahead, Mo.
So one thing you said, and you're right about the record going and traveling with your child. One thing I've seen, because I worked almost 10 years in the adult setting, as far as in the jail setting, what happens a lot of times, so you have the police being called and you have a situation, even when you have the parents or other people, family members standing there saying, this person is bipolar, they're paranoid schizophrenic, and you have all this information being thrown out there by people. We do not have a good tracking system so that coming in, first of all, that law enforcement is properly handling that person based on that diagnosis. That's not what's happening. Then when they get into the jail system, they're being screened by mental health, and also they're being screened by pretrial for a mental health court. They don't communicate with us to say, this is what is going on. So you might have somebody that is really having a serious breakdown, may not even be able to really communicate well or whatever. And all that is missed, because if I'm bipolar and you ask me, okay, have you been diagnosed with anything? Do you take any medications? And I just keep saying no, 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 or I don't say anything at all. They just pass right by that person. But they need to find a way that information from the family is taken into consideration, that something can be either sent, or just like we have an Amy's Law that's being completed in domestic violence cases. That's like a little checkoff list of, this is why I'm afraid of this person. This is why I believe they need some in-depth monitoring before they come around me, we need the same thing for mental health. Give the parents, give the people a little sheet. Okay, what are they diagnosed with? What's going on with them? So that those type things can be followed up with and verified, and that we know that when they're incarcerated. And I'm quite sure if it's not happening for adults and we're better communicators, this not happening in the juvenile justice system at all. So they come in being treated just for behaviors. Like one thing I've heard, this lady was saying, if you don't know how to write, we teach you how to write. You don't know how to read, we teach you how to read. But you don't know how to behave, what are we doing? We don't teach behaviors. We don't teach them how to behave, and even how to share, and how to things when they're small. We just discipline, and then the school comes right back in and discipline as well.
Yeah.
And the key thing you said about discipline, I feel like that strips away our freedom, because if you're just disciplined, you take away somebody's agency. It's almost like, well, this is who I am. If you're not explained what triggers you, if you're easily angered, or you're more anxious, and no one explains what it is you're dealing with, emotional wise, just simple emotions, you start to build this concept, I can't do this, but that's a part of my personality. What's wrong with me? And that happens in the home, and then that you have that compiled going into school, which, the more I think about school, I feel like it's low-key a priming to the prison system. If not the prison system, working a 9 to 5. It has that same type of mentality where you gotta do, you're mine. I tell you what to do, and this is what you have to do to get this happy life that you get after 65, when you're impotent and I've used you up, now throw away the key to another prison system, which is a retirement home. And I think the reason why why we're made a target even more so, not just, of course, the history of us being here, is because they need a bad guy. You need the criminal so that you can have the hero. So if you have this set of people that fit the description of the identity of being the monkey, the monster, the savage, the slave, et cetera, oh, he's the excuse for my problem. He's the excuse of why my bill's high because of the government assistance. He's the reason why I need to have these laws into play to protect my children. He's the reason why everything is wrong with the world. So even if it's not Black people, you can see that trait follow into how Mexicans are treated. They always got to have a criminal slave class to look at. This is the person this is why my problems are my problems.
Wow. Wow, you just, oh, I wish you would have said that when we get to the history part. But I love the way we flow with the way that we talk about these things. The things always seem to come full circle. So, wow. So sometimes you really blow me away a little bit. Like, not that I don't expect you to be extremely intelligent. I know that you are. And it's not so much about intelligence, you're a thinker. Right, so I respect that, but you sometimes I don't be all the way ready for the insights, bro. I don't be okay. So I want to explain to you all why this is such a detrimental conversation to have. I want to give you all some examples, because a lot of times we talk about these things in sort of these really wide strokes, and people are like, well, where is it happening? You know what I mean? Give me some examples. So guess examples. So, in Meridian, Mississippi, police routinely arrest and transport youths to a juvenile detention center for minor classroom behaviors. And in Jefferson Parish, Louisiana, according to a U.S. Department of Justice complaint, school officials have given armed police unfettered authority to stop, frisk, detain, question, search, and arrest school children on and off school grounds. In Birmingham, Alabama, police officers are permanently stationed in nearly every high school. These practices are evident in over 100 urban schools, and this is what I'm talking about, policy. So these are policies. These are literally written into how to deal with behavior issues in the school's policies. So these practices are evident in over 100 urban school districts across the country. Zero tolerance policies, which were, initiated by the Reagan administration, which set one-size-fits-all punishments for a variety of behaviors, have fed these trends over the past. Regina.
The first thing I want to say is, if we look at the scope of where those practices, the 100 counties, that those are aggressively being practiced in. So let me preface this statement by saying it happens everywhere. I know. Let me also preface this statement by saying, if you look at the 100 counties that it is aggressively being practiced in, it is usually in those counties, in those states that typically they don't view the Black intellect as being strong enough to say it. Meridian, Mississippi, Louisiana, Alabama. And I went to an HBCU in Alabama. I'm not saying that. What I am saying is that, hear what I'm saying, but please don't take this to heart, where they think there's a more ignorant population that will not stand up, rise up, and say anything about it. Does it happen everywhere? Absolutely. Does it happen right at home in Hamilton and Butler County? Absolutely. But they have a harder time doing it than they do in Meridian, Mississippi. Because Meridian, Mississippi has yet to reckon with a whole lot of stuff.
Right.
So then my question
a couple things I want you to stop doing. I want you, Regina, real quick. So before, I'm gonna need you to stop saying, I know y'all gonna, or the people gonna feel some kind of,
because everybody doesn't know me. I mean, like
we
you know
care,
me. I'm sorry.
But you're not being offensive. You're not being offensive.
Okay.
You are
I don't mean to offend. I don't want to.
Need to listen. Only you know what they say about hit dogs. Okay, so that's not really.
That's what Grandma say. But she also said, if you got your hand in the lion's mouth, you got to ease it out. So I'm just, you know.
I hear what you're saying, but I think when we're having these type of topics, like, it's for the purpose of making you uncomfortable enough to think. And we're not being. We literally talk about what we talk about.
Who is watching this?
Yeah, you
also
feel when we're having these. So, girl, first of all, and goodbye. And I agree with you because ignorance feeds, it continues to feed systems, right?
So ignorance continues to validate fear that is unfounded. That's what ignorance does.
And that's what I'm saying. So the same ignorance
they are horrible bedfellows. Ignorance and fear breeds death.
And be able to get away with certain treatment. Same ignorance they depend on white people and poor white people in particular to keep feeding that system. So I 110% agree. But so you were going to say something.
Well, then my question is, based on what Regina said, in the list that you're giving, is most of those states Southern? Because then I have an idea on why that's the case. Most of them are Southern.
Of course they are.
They all coastal. I mean, the South of them are coastal.
Go ahead and say it, so go ahead and say it, because you're going to say what I alluded to. Go ahead and say it, because yes is the answer. Yes. Yes.
Well, yes. Then you have to, hold on. You have to go back to history then, if this is the South. This was the Cottonfield Kingdom. You had not, and I had to think about it a little bit deeper. You're thinking about people's livelihoods, legacies, way of living, their comfortability, what they quote unquote fought for. And I use quotations not to take away from the immigrants that came here from wherever they came from, because they did have some, as studying more, they did have some harsh realities and they wanted something for their own. But when you free the slaves, that was the source of our livelihood. Of course, if you think about what was it they thought of us, that's not going to change just because the laws change. So of course it's going to be thicker down here. And that just breeds the difference. Well, oh, come to the North, come to the Underground Railroad where it's civilized, and you get racism on a different level, a much more sneaky, insidious more level. Down there, it's just, this is what we've been for hundreds of years. This is what we build our legacy on. So I can definitely see why that's a lot more policing, a lot more just open racism. I mean, when I went to Collins, Mississippi to bury my grandmother, I was on land that my grandfather owned and fought for to own. But there was still some places they tell you, it's like, don't go over in that area. Don't go over in that area. And we didn't go in that area. We have our space, they have their space. And if there's a problem, you better be able to be ready to handle it. Because I don't know if we'll be able to help you.
Wow.
Can I say one more thing, Dawn?
Mm-hmm.
As we continue to talk about this subject, I also want to make it very, very clear, unequivocally clear. And I say this for very selfish reasons, because I have a son who's going to be looking for a wife in the next 5 or 7 years. I need us all to take ownership and have a voice. There are no excuses for us to allow. I'm not saying we're going to win every fight. What I am saying, there are no excuses. And while I may not be on the front lines, holding my fists up, reciting the principles of Black Panther, I am fighting and making acknowledgments in my own way of doing things. If I can go through the Fairfield and Lakota school system and make them look at me go, you know, it used to crack me up. I used to be offended, but then I looked around me and I understood when they said things like, well, your family's different. Now, it was offensive at first, Mo, but then I looked around and I had to realize that a lot of us were too afraid to get uncomfortable for the fate of our children. Or we were too afraid to do the unknown. We didn't grow up, you know, back in the day when we was coming up, Mo, Dawn, where I live now wasn't nothing but cornfields back in the day. We knew nothing. Lakota seemed like it was an hour drive. You remember that, Dawn? When we used to have concerts and track meets and stuff, we'd be on that. It would seem like forever.
I went to Walnut Hills, so we played them in sports.
Exactly. So, you know, I moved into something that I didn't know to achieve something that I knew I needed for the longevity of my family. You know, and I wish I love Belinda Tubbs Wallace. I'm so excited that she's in Woodward, but she's one principal. We need that across the whole entire school. And I'm not knocking anybody, but Sol said something earlier and it made me think of this. There are educators and then there are teachers. A teacher can only teach to the people they relate to. An educator is going to teach to everyone. They're going to find the way to teach to that person. We got a whole bunch of teachers and not enough educators right now. Belinda Tubbs Wallace is an educator. You know, Sharon Draper was an educator. Do you understand what I'm saying? We need more of those.
Let me say this too. I honestly think we need support systems, and we talk about the village. Yes, we do.
And I'm sorry, I didn't say that too. If anybody needs support,
we need parents like you. We need parents like you who get it, who have some form of a support system, right? Because your mom was very present. Terrence's mom was very present.
And even with that, my family didn't understand, though. Even with that, they didn't understand.
Being able to support, and it also provides you all with a certain foundation that made you to be the person who you are. I want to push for my child, right? I see a lot of young or middle age, doesn't matter, single mothers who are parenting alone. Let me take it back. Single women who are parenting for the most part alone. There's already mental illness, or at least concerns of it in the bloodline somewhere along the way. And they are working 8 hour a day, you know what I'm saying, jobs. and they really can't mentally on their own, the capacity to be that involved is difficult for them. And they really don't understand what people are saying to them. And they're afraid to trust, it's the same distrust we have of the medical industry. They're afraid to trust what these people are saying to them in any school district, whether they look like them, don't look like them, whatever. And I've been trying to work on a parent peer group of parents who get it or who figured it out, like, wait a minute, I don't understand, but I'm gonna figure out how to be an advocate for my child. These parents need a support system, and they need a support system of people who sound like you, who look like you. Hear me when I'm saying this, right? Because they got a support system at Children's Hospital, Help Me Grow. Nobody in there got blonde hair with lashes. I'm not being funny. I mean, very, very serious. We just talked about this idea of relating, right? So when they see you, what they see is a sister who look like them, whether you came from where they came from or not. It's an assumption that you did. And so you get some part of who they are. And it's so much easier for them to trust and hear it from you than it is from my really good friend at Children's Hospital who really gives a shit about this. And she don't look like us. But you know why I'm on her team?
Don, you know what?
I'm on her team, hold on, because she can't navigate in certain neighborhoods. She can't. Period. Like, she can't go. She needs me to open doors for her in neighborhoods. And I just wish that along with her, I had this sister who ain't in a profession, who was just a mama with a child, who figured it out, who could sit down and talk to her like, listen, because Amy ain't gonna say, listen, she ain't gonna talk like that.
Right. And I feel that, Don. And let me tell you the challenge, and to anyone who watches this or listen, I am so down to create that community with us. But the challenge I find with us, Don, here's where it becomes a two-edged sword. Because whenever I try to extend that hand, this is what I get back, Don, and it pisses me off. Well, you got a husband, or you don't understand like I do because you got a job. Let me tell you something. Every time someone says that to me, and all of that shit takes work. Do you hear me? It is a 24/7, 52, 365, 66, depending on the year. It's work. Don't think I got it easy because I got a husband, because sometimes that's just another dependent, because he has his things he leans on me for. So when that hand comes out to you to tell you, I recognize your child, my child was your son. I see him. And the way to get to him is not through spanking him. You're going to have to pull back, because a whooping ain't always the answer. And I am a proponent of spare the rod, spoil the child. But when it came to I know Mo gonna get me for that. But when it came to my child, I recognized that I had to communicate with him differently. I recognized that with TJ, my son, even at 5 years old, I had to get a brother the facts. He wasn't about emotion. He wasn't about what's the facts. What do I need to do? Why do I need to do it? And what do I get out of it in the end? That's an Asperger's child, period, in the conversation. I said his girlfriend is going to have a problem because she going to get mad when he don't compliment her on getting her hair done, because his response is going to be, because that's what you're supposed to do. That's going to be his response. And I'm so serious. I'm so very serious.
And I don't disagree with you. I'm not saying that the reception is always good. What I have found is that you have to get them in a situation where
I don't want them to be the situation where they're crying because the kid's arrested and the cops can't calm them down.
And we'll get to this because I do want to move on to the next one. But you have to get them in a situation where in a captive audience. So they are coming for something and they understand that they are there for something, right? It can't necessarily be when they come in to fill out the application for school. That's not the best time to do it. But invite them for an ice cream social. I mean, it sounds corny, but it's true. They came there, and we're gonna talk about.
How about I teach you how to pack a lunch?
Come and have some ice cream, and we're gonna talk about how to advocate. but I'm saying seriously, and I want Back to Love to do this. I think that we can come and we get some professionals in the room. It won't be me, but Regina and Mo, who hands-on with this kind of thing. Come and have some ice cream, and we're going to talk about how to be a child advocate for your child. They are coming to get ice cream, and they are captive audience. They understand when they come that they are coming to hear something, to talk about something. Create an environment where they can be vulnerable, where they can be wrong and corrected lovingly, where you are ready to be transparent and say, I didn't know shit. Here's what I had to do to get, you know what I mean?
That's right. That's right.
I'm sorry, go ahead, Mo. And Soul both had their fingers up. First finger, go for it.
I believe the time is now, because we've had to homeschool. We've had everything, the whole school system disrupted. A lot of us, have either reduced hours or had to come off the job or whatever you had to do in order to make sure your child was getting what they needed during this whole pandemic. This would be a perfect time before school goes back in to talk about some of these things, because being a working parent is not an excuse. Sometimes it's just an email. When I get in from work, when school first starts, first of all, everybody's getting an email from me saying, hello, I'm Caleb's mom. Yes, I'm busy, but you can call me anytime. I will be there. Let me know. Let's stay connected. Don't let him get, behind on any homework or have any problems that you may see. Let's communicate. And I also keep them up to date with what's going on in our family, in our personal lives. And that's not culturally, that's not something we normally do, but it's something we need to start doing. To say, I had to tell them when his dad was diagnosed with cancer a couple years ago. I had to tell them last year when I was diagnosed with lupus.
They wouldn't know if he was acting out.
Yeah. Because he was scared to death. He didn't know. He didn't know what was going on. Like, okay, now you're telling me about my daddy. Now, okay, I see mama's at the hospital all the time, and then he tells me, like, you're always tired. You always, they see all that. And they process things differently. And so life for that child is going to be different than life for another child that doesn't have that going on at home. But if we can communicate, and I contacted school counselors, they all know me by name. Whoever it is, if it's somebody.
That's what I'm talking about. Our parents need to understand. That's what we need to teach them. Because what it says to teach administrators right away, that this mama, I ain't going to be able to get back with nothing.
Right.
See me, and she letting me know what's going on with my child. So if anything happened, I have nothing to fall back. I can't say I didn't know.
Yes. Don't wait till report cards come out. I try to do a check-in a month before report cards to say, okay, what's going on? Because there's lag time even with the grades being posted online. So if you just wait until they start posting everything, they're failing and the term is almost over. You don't have time to play catch up. But if you check in early and see, this is how we break down a school to prison pipeline. You have to create a school to college pipeline, or a school to work or career pipeline. There has to be something, just like rerouting water. You can't just go underneath the house and all those pipes and everything and decide, oh, okay, I'm expecting this to flow differently. Oh, you better be rerouting and going another way with it. And that's what we got to learn how to do, is reroute.
Wow. That's profound. I mean, the interesting part about this podcast is we really touched on almost everything that we were going to talk about. And that's a good thing. It's a good thing. I want to so if you have anything that you want to touch base with, I know that you really want to get into the historical part of it, and that's next. I want to read some statistics really quick, again, so that people can really drive home to people why these things that we're talking about, a parent network or support group, recreating the pipeline, why these things are important. So, but before I do that, I want to make sure I open the floor for you.
I was just going to say, in regards to what you were saying about Regina, the quickest way to a person's heart is through his belly. You meet them where they are, especially food. Everybody needs food and water. Give them free food. Me and Mo know this.
Yeah.
Packed house.
Fact.
Got them. And people was politicking that they didn't even know was even existed. So that's that. And
You know
then
what else? You know what else? Something I used to do with my son. Well, I did it with all my children because I really didn't like the lunches the school served. When I packed their lunches, especially with my son, I would use the words that were his vocabulary words and leave him notes in his lunchbox. Little stuff like that. You know what I mean? Just little stuff like that. You know, he liked dinosaurs. So I went and found a dinosaur cookie cutter and his sandwiches were dinosaur shaped. You know, just little stuff that was that touch of home that made his day okay. Even if it got overwhelming, he knew he would open that lunchbox and mommy would have some love in there for him. Now the boy is 19 and almost 6 feet tall, but he is still the kid that will call me. Like he can call me in a few minutes and say, Mom, how was your day? You know, I can't wait to get home. I'm not home right now, but I've been gone 3 weeks and I'm sick of it. So.
I know. So you were you were finishing your.
yes, and then I would just quickly add on changing the trajectory from the pipeline to colleges to entrepreneurship. How about also how to process emotions? Because I feel like some parents are still in the mindset of older parents of children are to be seen, not heard. And I feel like it's close to where people look at pets, specifically a dog. You have to understand, just as a dog, that dog is still a creature. It still can feel pain. It still can feel happiness. It still can feel sadness. That's no different than you being a child, the same age as your son or your daughter. So I say that in regards to it was really driving home when I was thinking about early on, if y'all had noticed a little bit, because I was thinking about my nephew. And just as I had an incident where it could have been police, my nephew recently, he was in a situation where it could have went left and it could have been another hashtag. Had I had not put a little bit of myself into him when I talked to him about how to deal with these emotions of anger, loneliness, just these things that did not belong to him. It's really somebody projecting what they feel, did not process it, and put it out on him, and it continues the cycle. Had he had been more aggressive, that's what could have happened. So stop looking at your children as you said, Don, getting them out the house. What can I do so that my son or my daughter can be a better human being than I was? What are the flaws that I have, or the things that I didn't know how to handle, and just have honest dialogue. You ain't gotta be perfect. I tell them all the time, I got stuff in my closet that you probably look at me left on, but I can tell you, if you did this, this is what this, that, and the third happened. This is how you can process your feelings. You may feel like you're in the just right now, but maybe here's another way that I learned. So emotional behavior, that starts with transparency.
Yeah, parents, I would say, if you don't know, it's okay to say that you don't know, and talk to somebody who can help you figure out how to do it. It's so perfectly okay for you not to know. You don't know because you. That again, like Soul said, is something that is projected on you. It's something you carrying with you that don't even belong to you. It don't even belong to you. So I want to read a couple of statistics because again, I'm driving this thing home, and I think I built this way so that you could really get the notion of what's happening in our country, and has been since Reagan has been president. What years was Ronald Reagan president?
The 80s.
Right, late 80s or early 90s. So this whole idea of pipeline was created with the no tolerance zero tolerance policy in school.
Just like the every child but watch this. This is a total sidebar, but it's not. Just like the No Child Left Behind thing came into play during that same little era, where you wanted to create all of this standardized testing and stuff. It was all a setup. And I think, Don, we were a little more, going to the high school we went to, we were more fortunate because the SAT was an absolute setup. It was an absolute setup where, and when I used to tutor math, I used to tell people all the time, it's not that Black children don't know math. It's the language that it's being presented to them in. They don't know. It's simple things like a half dozen is 6. 6 and a half dozen are the same thing. But if they don't know it and you're using that language, then you've set them up to fail. And so that's a very minor example, but it is still yet an example that leaves them labeled.
It's actually not minor at all. It's what they consider to be a root cause. And I'll read those root causes again. Failing school systems are what they consider to be a root cause of the school to prison pipeline. So just want to read a few statistics for you guys. African American students are 3.5 times more likely than their white classmates to be suspended or expelled. And that's according to the nationwide study by the U.S. Department of Education Office for Civil Rights. Black children constitute 18% of students, but they account for 46% of those suspended. 1 in 4 Black children with emotional and learning disabilities are suspended at least once versus 1 in 11. I'll say that again, 1 in 4 children of color, not Black children, versus 1 in 11 white children with disabilities, with diagnosed, recognized disabilities. That's important. According to the U.S. Department of Education, more than 70% of students arrested in school-related incidents are referred to law enforcement, that are referred to law enforcement are Black or Hispanic. So 70% of in-school arrests are Black children who are referred to law enforcement first, before all else, for non-violent issues.
That sentence don't even make sense to me. But go ahead.
According to the U.S. Department of Justice, the number of school resource officers rose 38% between 1997 and 2007, 1 decade. The regular presence of school security guards increased 27% in that same time. In Florida, two-thirds of the arrests are for misdemeanors, not serious crimes. And we're talking about in-school arrests. We're talking about police officers, not just resource officers, not security guards, fully clothed, uniformed, with their badge, with their nightsticks and badges and guns and tasers, come into the classroom. Okay, 2/3 of the arrests. That means 2 out of every 3 are for misdemeanors and non-serious crimes. The school to prison pipeline is supported by budgetary decisions made by the U.S. Department. Now, this is where we are going to go next, and we're going to talk about these corporations who are making big money on this thing and how the pipeline is being funded. Okay, it's supported by budgetary decisions made by the U.S. government from 1987 to 2007. Funding for incarceration more than doubled, while funding for higher education was raised by just 21%.
But y'all running around with them Nikes on, though, ain't you? Yeah, you are. I'm just saying. I'm gonna leave that alone.
Funding.
Y'all going to get them new Air Force Ones, ain't you? Yeah, you are.
It's a sad thing, because if you think about it, in that last decade, right, from 2000 to 2007, was when most of the extracurricular came out of schools, right? Because they didn't have the funding for them. So things that allowed children to express if they were emotional kids, or they were what I consider to be leaders. They were aggressive kids. A lot of the things, if they were artistic children who were into music, a lot of that extracurricular came out of schools because they didn't have funding. what they did was took that funding to employ resource officers and extra security guards. And if you look at high schools, and this is what I suggest you do, if you go to your child's grade school, middle school, or high school, ask how many resource officers are employed in this school, not even in the district, just in your school, that child's school, and how many school counselors are there. And if your child's school has more resource officers than they have counselors, it is a school to prison pipeline. Your child is attending a district that is a pipeline, and it's being funded by your federal government. Talk about that. Talk about that shit right there.
Why is it even called a resource officer? Because what resources are you?
They have no resources. Go on and speak on it, Mo.
It's crazy. And normally you'll have one counselor, if you have one counselor to yourself. Some school districts have to share counselors. So
yeah. They don't have mental health experts inside the schools. They don't have funding for that. They don't have funding for extracurriculars. They don't have funding for all. They did when we were coming up. They had funding for all of that in the schools, all of it. And Reagan became president and said, "No more. Drugs is everywhere," right? Because y'all know he also funded the war on crime. Come on, all that was tied in. Here's your history. So come on and give it to us. All of that was tied into the same exact time. The war on crime produced an amount of violence that, quote unquote, they ain't never seen. Now, mind you, they was funding the war, right? Y'all know that's what the whole thing with Reagan and what was it? Watergate. That's what. So he is providing weaponry to the Middle East, who was at war with South America. He is funding the war for one set of brown people across one ocean to overtake another set of brown people across it's the Middle Passage. It literally is almost the exact Middle Passage. Ain't that scary? Right? And in return, he was closing his eyes to South Americans bringing crack and making sure that cocaine was distributed in the Black community. So violence in the Black community, adult males who were in that scene, they decided that Black boys were violent because of what they were experiencing in neighborhoods, whether they were selling dope or not. So it really started on the high school and grade school level. That y'all see how this violence happening in the neighborhood. We need to make sure we lock this down at school. All of it was a part of the same system. And sadly, what they did was started getting private once government funding, right? Because Watergate did a lot. It brought out a lot, right? Once that funding, the government funding looked like it might be ending, they got private corporations to help start funding the pipeline. Dig that, y'all.
That's a shame.
So when people talk about this, I didn't own a slave kind of thing, and white people kind of want to be separated from it. Once you give them this information, what you become a part of is perpetuating the history of Black people in this country. You are as much at fault as your great-great-grandfather owned you. My opinion. I'm gonna do my Regina thing. Like, I know y'all gonna hate me for it, but I'm just providing information. Go ahead, Mom.
Well, this article we found from the Malta Justice Initiative was very, very deep. And it was saying that $2,400 worth of tax credit is received for every work release inmate that they employ. So that all, and they named all the different companies. Just look it up. The article is 12 major corporations benefiting from the prison industrial complex. They talked about McDonald's producing frozen food, and the inmates process the beef for the patties, that Wendy's, same thing. The inmates were processing the beef. They named Walmart as part of this, so the company uses inmates for manufacturing at Walmart. And even Starbucks uses Washington State prisoners to package holiday coffees. And it just went on and on. I mean, there's Sprint's listed, Verizon's listed, Victoria's Secrets is listed, Fidelity Investments, which Fidelity has been around for a long time, J.C. Penney's, the airlines. It was all getting this, really what it is slave labor, because it's cheaper labor.
Mm-hmm.
You're getting a kickback for using the inmates. And then at the same time, you're getting your product produced at a cheaper rate. But then we complain. I just see it as a wheel here, because we complain about, okay, the inmates are in jail away from their families, mostly men, away from their families. And so the family is disrupted. And here it is, you can work all these inmates, but you can't train them for work or to find jobs when they get out. So then they come back out and end up doing much of the same things to get back in prison, because the whole prison system is a mess. And on the flip side of that is the children that are in school having problems, missing daddy or missing mama or whoever they're missing because they're incarcerated. I've worked for a year and a half with incarcerated girls, 14 to 17. That's real. A lot of them have family members that have been incarcerated. So it's that continual thing that happens that seems to be never ending.
And I want to put a correction out really quick. I was all excited. Y'all know how I get when I get excited. But Watergate was Nixon. The Iran-Contra affair was Reagan. And that was him funding Iran to have the war with South America. Yeah. So I apologize. I want to make sure I put that correction out to people. It was not Watergate. That was in the 70s with Nixon. The Iran-Contra affair was Reagan's scandal. I just got excited because they used to always compare the two, and I got excited. And I was like, wait a minute, did I say Watergate? No, that ain't right. That ain't right. So
Mo, you know what I find interesting about what you just read is one of the strongest in the country, one of the strongest, and I'm saying this as a former college educator, one of the strongest college reimbursement companies in this country is McDonald's. McDonald's encourages their employees because they give them 100% tuition reimbursement. Yeah, I know. So I know. Fix your eyebrows. It's facts. Huh?
Is that the Band-Aid? Is that the Juneteenth?
That's why I said I think that's so interesting. It's the Band-Aid. Yeah. It's trying to right a wrong. I think I look at it like this. It doesn't make it feel any better, but I look at it like, oh shoot, we messed up. Let's do this to fix it.
Mm-hmm.
And McDonald's also does not require you to have completed the course to do it, to get it. So they pay for it. I bring you my registration. Now you got to give them your end of quarter grades, yes, but they're going to pay for it up front. Yeah. Yeah.
Interesting. And I think I knew that.
Yeah, because I used to tell people all the time, I don't want to work at McDonald's. You better go work at McDonald's. They're paying for college. You better get your butt over there. If you're trying to be a nurse, you better go. I think we sometimes...
Yeah, it just makes me feel like it's a trap.
It does make me feel like it's a trap, but you know what? Your ends sometimes got to justify your means, and you got to know how to do what you do. If that McDonald's job is going to get you the education that's going to get you out of a situation that you've watched become a cycle in your family, then you may want to consider it, but you got to be smart in it. Go ahead, Soul. I'm sorry.
No, you're fine. I wanted to catch you because this has been circling in my brain.
Ooh, we're in the soul zone.
I used to be one of those people that probably gonna watch this and think, well, I'm not assigning myself with that. That's the devil, that's the government, that's capitalism. As long as you live here, as long as you are paying taxes, as long as you live on this land and it's a capitalist state, everything we do, from our cell phones to sending a postcard to getting on Facebook to working at your job, everything you do, almost every corporation, it seems, the more you study them, is tied to something that makes it worse for everybody. So before you go and condemn anyone for doing anything, like I used to be, I am gonna say this. I think it's very interesting that in the late 80s, NWA got famous, COINTELPRO. But at the same time, when I look at them as just a person, if you're living in an area where everywhere around you is that, anybody with sense is gonna say, this ain't cool. I want out. I look on the TV and everybody's got all these nice things. I want some nice things. And I say that in regards to these corporations that's funding this cycle. It reminds me of just how we do our streets in Cincinnati alone. It's always a pothole. They pave over it. Never gets fixed, just gets paved over it. Oh, George Floyd was murdered. Oh, we're gonna give you a band-aid. We're gonna Netflix is gonna donate millions of dollars to HBCU while they still screw over a majority of Black filmmakers and artists and actors. We're going to get our free labor from Mexicans just because it's cheaper. We're going to outsource our jobs to other countries because if it doesn't make dollars, it doesn't make sense. It's always about what you just said, Regina. Your ends justify your means. So it just continues the cycle and it goes on and on and on. And that is fed into our children going forward. The ends justify the means.
And I think it's great that corporations like McDonald's provide tuition for their employees. That's a wonderful thing. They should. They pay them $8 an hour. So thank you for that. But it is, I understand flipping the script and using it to get what you need and all of that kind of stuff. But if you are the college, let's just say that the college dropout rate for Black children is also much higher, right? You're not generally, if you live in Cincinnati, you're not going to an HBCU. So having your tuition paid is a wonderful thing, but college is a time when you need a tremendous amount of support, especially if you're a Black inner city child going to a predominantly white university, right? So it seems as if I like the statistics, and I'm gonna find it here, right? On how many of that tuition actually panned out to degree, right? And I'm interested in that, and I'm interested in that to say because you have tuition paid. It's kind of like we'll pay your tuition, not for kids who don't have a leg up of being successful at it. It sounds good, but I bet you your funding for incarceration is far more. You incarcerate far more Black kids than you are educating. Yeah. That I would put money on right now today. And so you offering tuition again.
And so is Michael Jordan. It's one of those, but no doubt.
Yeah, it's like one of those things that you offering tuition again is kind of like that way nobody will look at the fact that we're funding incarceration. You know what I mean? Like,
say it again for the idiots in the back.
We're gonna do this thing so nobody will look. We're gonna do Juneteenth, and don't get me wrong. I'm like, great Juneteenth. I wrote a whole post about it. Like, let's build on it. I totally get that, right? To believe like Juneteenth is not like it's only because I know that we can't get this shit passed. This George Floyd, police reform bill passed in Senate, and it ain't gonna pass. It ain't gonna pass. Not unless it's 2022 we get more Democrats now. I mean, in the Senate.
Mm-mm.
It ain't gonna pass. They're gonna talk about this shit for the next 4 years. And it's gonna be one of the things they talk about at the end of Joe Biden's presidency. You know, he was able to get the pandemic under control and hate and all of it, but he couldn't get that bill passed. I'll put money on it. I'll put everything
No. Take it back. Because Juneteenth is in the month of Pride Month. He did do for blacks when he passed a bill to protect transgenders, because black transgenders are a higher rate of being murdered by police.
Mm-hmm.
I love you. I love you because you just said that like, I got it. I understood the sarcasm. Something wrong with you. So I think a lot of what we talked about tonight, we already really discussed the root causes of why this system exists. And I'm gonna state what people have determined are the root causes. Are you talking, Regina? Oh, she's talking to someone else. And the reason that I'm going to state these is I think this is where we began to rebuild the pipeline. Failing public schools. For most students, the pipeline begins with inadequate resources in public school, as early as preschool, as early as kindergarten. Zero tolerance in other school disciplinary policies. I think we need to, when they give that handbook out at the beginning of the school year, we need to be asking for a copy of the disciplinary policies. They can't say no, it's a policy. We have access to it if our children are in the schools, right? Policing school hallways. So just literally the presence, we know this because we know the presence of riot police. When police come with riot gear, we know the presence of that, especially in a situation that's already friction and already somewhat hostile. We know that when you add police and riot gear into that mix, that it frustrates or instigates, agitates the situation even more. So you just have the presence of police officers being at the schools, period. Disciplinary alternative schools. So they have these whole schools where they send kids who have disciplinary issues, but they aren't educating them. They aren't trying to rehabilitate them. They just put them there. It's almost like back in the day, my mother, when you were a pregnant, unwed teenager, you had to go to Catherine Booth. I took you back, Regina. Did I take you back a little bit? Catherine Booth was a school for pregnant girls, pregnant teenagers. And they just stuck them all in the same place so that they wouldn't influence the other girls. You take sex. You actually got to have sex, but okay, whatever. Court involvement and juvenile detention.
Wait a minute, what we say about sex? Back up. Say that again.
I was saying that they were talking about police and school hallways or disciplinary alternative schools where they take kids who have disciplinary issues and put them all in one school. And it's not necessarily educating or counseling or therapy or rehabilitation going on in those schools. It really is just another form of a detention center. And I said it's the same.
I was just about to say that because if you put if you put a group of people with the same, Don, you remember when we read Animal Farm?
Yeah.
So I'm going somewhere with this. So when you take a group of people that have the same proclivities and you put them in the same place, a couple of things are going to happen. The first thing that is going to happen is that proclivity is going to become prominent. And the second thing that's going to happen is that people are going to be weeded out by natural selection.
Yeah. It's like monkeys.
You're forcing the hand of nature when you do stuff like that.
It's like monkeys, right? You all may have heard about this.
I ain't gonna talk about monkeys because you get mad when I call my kids monkeys. So yeah.
It's like the experiment they did on a group of apes, monkeys, right? They had the bananas to feed them, and every time they got close to it, they would spray them with cold water. And it would push them back. They couldn't get to the bananas. And eventually one of the monkeys lost his everlasting mind and was ready to murder everybody in the pen. You know, like everybody, because he's hungry. And those monkeys who were initially scared and would go and cower, they saw this particular monkey like, I'm not taking this anymore. and eventually
Look at
they all
Soul.
because they
Soul is so
saw,
primal.
yeah,
I can't stand
they
him.
saw that by him losing his mind, that monkey losing his mind, he got his bananas. You know, same thing. And of course, the court involvement, and what that means in juvenile detention is that the courts or these children are not, you have to remember, if an arrest occurs, then there's an arraignment, right? You help me with this, Mo. If an arrest occurs, then there's a charge, there is an arraignment, there's a whole court process. So the courts are involved from the gate. Why are courts involved in disruptive issues in the school system? Why? And then, of course, the corporate funding. So when we look at those root causes, the question becomes is, how do we begin to divert some of that? Where's the start to divert?
I think we need to do more mediation. Like even with myself, I was in trouble a lot in school, very young, to the point where I remember the judge saying, "You keep coming and coming, I'm going to keep you here." But a lot of my problems, I was dealing with being harassed. I had, I was a size D bra by the time I was in the 6th grade, and that got a lot of attention from boys. They would try to touch me. I would try to communicate with the teachers. They really weren't dealing with the situation, that it was harassment. They were trying to touch me and talking about me or whatever. And things didn't get serious until I was hanging somebody out of 2nd-story window. Then it's
broken kneecap
that had the problem. No, I have the problem because you keep pushing and pushing and pushing, and you're not going to just. So, and that's what a lot of the reports were saying too with these kids, that it's not always the person that's instigating and doing stuff that gets in trouble. They're reacting to something and they're missing the whole beginning part, what led up to that reaction. So definitely use mediation, sit down, use corrective type circles. I've had to do that in my school district. I don't live in Cincinnati Public School District, where you have to come in and with, everybody is sitting around like, okay, we have an issue. Let's talk. Let's talk this out and get this frustration out. And it does work. It helps.
I think what you said in the beginning, literally, I got me thinking about this peer support group and helping them compose those types of letters and having a regular schedule where they check in with the teacher and making sure that it's an open door policy and they expect to be informed first.
Yes.
Before you call an officer, before any of that happens, here are my expectations. Thank you for the parent handbook. I understand what expectations you have of me. Thank you. Now, here's my list. At the same time you handed me this parent handbook, right? Because you get them when you enroll you get what the expectation is for your child, for you, what happens if it's inclement, whether you get all this information. So when they hand that to you, you smile graciously, and helping parents compose an expectation list of their own.
Yes.
So can I ask a question?
Here. You sign, I sign. We're in agreement. And you don't know my first name, I'm gonna know your first name. When I call you, I'm gonna say Betty. What happened to that? You understand what I'm saying? I had teachers named Betty, but I went back. I had teachers named Betty. Ain't nobody named Betty these days, what I'm saying.
I can't stand you.
Maybe a Lakota's Betty. I don't know. Okay.
May I ask a question? Because I wanna put a period on the end of this. And it goes back to something you said earlier, Don, and you were talking about that ice cream social. Are we making that an action item for us? Please and thank you.
Mean, I put it on
preferably soft serve.
So I feel like
what you say. So
preferably soft serve ice cream.
Ain't nobody doing all that. You gonna get the hard stuff with the kitchen spoon that we put on them.
We have the frozen yogurt. You tripping?
We have cake cones that don't never come out the box, right?
And all that stuff. So. They got a whole little group that like comes out and sets up the social for you and everything.
Really?
We need money. We need to start asking for donations. Hey, if anybody,
Our cash app is in the description
amazing
below.
things that we want to do and that we are going to do. And I keep speaking them into the universe because I believe that they will manifest. It's something that we are doing. Somebody is going to find valuable enough to really invest in. So we have been trying to figure out, and we'll be wrapping this up really quick. We've been trying to figure out if we are a group of community connectors, or if we are the group that actually throws the event, right? We are the counselors, people with the counselors, if that makes sense.
Mhm.
I would love to see us bring those parents together who are, as we look at returning to the school systems, because I agree with Mo. I think this last year, parents have gained an appreciation of what the teachers have had to deal with. And it's a reckoning right now. You can no longer ignore what little Bobby got going on. Whether it's emotional, whether it's mental, whatever it is, let's just talk about it.
Yeah.
So Bobby doesn't become a hashtag. And again, I am so open to anybody who has that child, that baby that you don't know, to be that resource, and then let's come together and let's make that happen, whether it's an ice cream. And it doesn't necessarily, and I know food usually attracts people, but there are some parents out here nowadays that just don't even know how to pack a lunch. And it's more than just Big Red Pop and flaming hot Cheetos.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, I think we really need to talk about, and we will, and we kind of, going on a little tangent here, but I think we really need to look at this resource fair and figure out things that we can really do around it. Like those type of things, very practical things, like 30-minute meals that you can cook, that can stretch for 2 or 3 days to make sure that your children, they have things in here like having a group compile the annual report on a total number of disciplinary actions that have pushed children out of a particular school system. What is that district doing? And having a group of parent advocates who inform the school district that we are aware of how many of your statistics, we are aware of your records. And what we want to do is to figure out how to become mediators to stop it from happening. Because what I do know is that I believe this is happening because people don't know. They don't really know. They know what the prison and pipeline, but they don't really know, assuring that a districts, that any school district, they have their disciplinary policies posted on their website. Why wouldn't they? Easy access for all parents. Why wouldn't they? Helping parents compose a letter of advocacy. I am my child's advocate. Here's what I expect from you all year. We are educators together. But I need you to know I'm involved and I'm present and I am here.
Exactly. And that was so key for me. That was crucial. That's right.
And when I'm not here, I got this whole group of advocates behind me. Everybody got their eye on you. I think that's important. I think these things happen because we don't know it. We just don't know that it's happening. There was a question about how can schools districts divert the school to prison pipeline, and I feel like school districts are not going to do it on their own. That if it's going to happen, like everything else, there's strength in numbers. They have to demand that it happens. And then we start building that pipeline. But we got to crush this one first. We literally got to bust this pipeline open. Let all the water leak out, rebuild the pipeline. You know what I mean? Provide simple explanations and prescribe responses in the student code of conduct to ensure fairness. So even an advocacy group could talk about the code of conduct. We're going to rewrite the code of conduct, and this is what it's going to look like. Parents are contacted first, and then a counselor is contacted, and then the police officers are the very last people to enter the scene, and they can only enter the scene when violence has
weapons.
I think there needs to be a very clear definition in the student code of conduct, because we call out in the student code of conduct, if you read any of them, we blatantly call out those very overt deviant behaviors. What we don't do, and what is more critical, more serious, more damning than those overt, are those very passive aggressive things that non-Black individuals do to provoke our children. I'll give you an example. Several years ago, Dawn, you've heard this story, and you've met Madison, my youngest daughter. Several years ago, Madison was at school playing, and Madison has never been stung by a bee, so she didn't know if she was allergic to bees, right? So a little boy comes over to her with a bee in his hand saying, "I'm gonna let this bee sting you and I hope you die." Okay? So Madison, being her mama's child, responded and says, "Okay, before I die, I'm gonna take a katana and I'm gonna cut your head off. So we're gonna go together." So
Facts.
Imagine everybody in the school had to go look up what a katana was, first of all, because she used a word that the principal didn't even know what the hell it was. But Madison got in trouble for responding, but not the little boy for threatening her. And the only reason this is not on Madison's record, the only reason it is not going to be reflected, is because Madison had such stellar letters. Her whole entire school wrote letters on behalf of her to the school board, because we had to have a school board meeting. We literally had to, because they have this zero policy. I was like, and here's what really pissed me off. You don't have this little boy and his mama sitting in this meeting with us. That's the other thing I don't like about the school system nowadays. You empower cowards. You empower liars. And I don't like it. I don't like it. I guess they figured if Madison used a word like katana, her parents are probably the mafia. I don't know. But I'm just saying, now under the table, her daddy fist bumping her, talking about that's my girl. But I'm like, listen, this is serious, y'all. This ain't time to play. But she didn't start it. She didn't start it. He bought a knife to a gunfight and went home crying to his mama. Madison never even told me about what happened, you guys, because she brushed it off. It was his mama calling and saying he felt scared to come to school. Are you fucking kidding me?
Wow.
He started it, and she gets out of here.
Well, I mean, that kind of leads us right into the last part of this whole conversation, and how it affects our community overall, right? If we have our children on a sort of a constant threat, and we know it, we know how it affects the community. We see it, right? Because it manifests itself in these children's lives over and over and over. But as a whole, I think you were talking about generations being separated too early from their community, and then that means us missing or not having access to their talent, to their contributions, to the families that they may build down the road. That literally means us not having access to them, and thus the cycle in our community continues to happen. A fractioned community without all of its legs. It's a two-leg spider. Ain't no two-leg spiders. They don't exist. If you find one, it's not a spider. That bitch that mutated into something. Take a picture. Send it to the... That ain't right. That ain't no... If it look like a spider that's got two legs, wrong. But, what do you all see as the biggest issues, the biggest effects of the pipeline in our community?
I can't even say there's one big one because so many things come to my mind listening to y'all and just thinking about it, and just some of the stuff that was written in the notes that I'm reading, and I'm just thinking so many different things. One thing comes, I'm just gonna, sometimes I don't have a particular idea in mind. I just talk, just throw thoughts out there. So I'm just gonna throw two main thoughts that come to my head. I think that where our society is hostile in general. And so I use this analogy all the time, and I'll continue to use it because I keep seeing it over and over and over again. I don't know if that's just by my own experience, but this is just how I see myself as an individual, his own individual experience, and then the country itself. It's like a bottle of pop that keeps getting shaken up, and eventually it's going to explode. When Regina was talking about the incident with her daughter, or the incident of what Mo was talking about, I forget what it was, but not seeing the incident and then just seeing my own instances where everybody sees the blow up and not the steps to get to that point.
Yeah.
There's a simulation with that with domestic abuse, as far as guys hitting a woman, but they don't ask questions of what led up to that. Not saying that there's no guys that don't hit women that are just don't know how to deal with their emotions, but they never ask what led up to this point. They only see the result, and that's not empathy. That's just putting something in place. Everyone being civilized, everyone being a good dog, everybody being a good steward. But in reality, we have never really been civilized. We're just trying to act like we want everything to be peaceful when it's not. So when I think about the school to prison pipeline and how we deal with children, especially Black and Brown, our community, it's not from a place of empathy. It's not from a place of education. It's not about, oh, he's just a disruptive child. No, he may she he or she may not just don't know how, in their interpretation of the world, how to deal with their emotions, whether they had a messed up experiences before, or this is just how they express themselves, even down to a baby. Babies cry because they want to be heard. Babies cry because they're using their lungs. So when you tell the baby to shut up, or you just keep feeding them every time they cry, you're not understanding what they're trying to say. Life is trying to be life, and you're trying to pacify because of your agitation and your own lack of understanding or discipline to educate the child. Yes, you're going to scream. It's okay to feel hurt. It's okay to cry out. It's okay to do this, but there is another way of dealing with it. There's no teaching. There's just fix it, put it away, and not think about it. That's what's happening to us. Just put away with your feelings. We are not validating it. We're not doing anything to help you. We know all this happened to you in history, but we don't care because you're disrupting our perfect little world. There's no place for you. And when a person has no place, they go underground, they go underworld, criminal activity, whatever. And there's that divide and conquer method over and over again. So I don't have one answer. It's just like every other episode we talked about, where you can't have one without the other.
Yeah.
For me, it jeopardizes the whole community. It jeopardizes us as a people. It puts us in harm's way of unfair treatment. Once again, you know, I think, parents need to definitely, what Don was saying, be more involved, learn that it's not the teacher suspending, it's the principal. So if you're having a problem with the principal and your child is being threatened with suspension, go to the school board. I've had to do it. Go to the school board and complain and request a meeting and let them know what's going on so that they can get involved and reach back out to the school and find out what's going on.
Good advice, Mo. Good information.
And then another thing too, I wanted, before I forget, if your child has been charged with something, don't just let the charges just get dismissed, because that still shows up on your juvenile rap sheet. It still shows up on your adult rap sheet. Ask that it be expunged, ask that the arrest be sealed. Those are the arrest sealed means, even when I was running people's criminal history, I couldn't even get in to see what has been sealed. It's fully sealed. And that's what you need, because then you don't have to worry about, just having a bunch of stuff that says dismiss, dismiss, dismiss. It still looks bad to have that on your record. So think about those type things. And I'm sorry. If you can't afford an attorney, you know, bring somebody else in there with you, and somebody to advocate, or even if they don't know the law, just to listen, be a second set of ears to listen through the whole process and to ask questions.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Agreed. I think when I look at it, it just feels like another layer, right? And it feels like it's so present in every part of our development. I understand people saying things like, what is Juneteenth? Mm-hmm. Thank you. Like, because you still have these major systems that, if it don't, like Soul said earlier, I think Soul said earlier, if it doesn't get you one way, it's gonna get you another. And it's sort of this, you find yourselves, I think in our community, I think we find ourselves constantly trying to avoid the potholes.
Yes.
And when you can get to be a 60, 65-year-old Black man and you say, but they ain't never got me. Mm-hmm. That's your claim to fame. That's your claim to fame. That says something. That just says something. And it makes me feel like there's so much for us to unpack. So I think one of the things as a community that we can do is find, and I've been saying this for a long time, and I know everybody on this call who's known me for any length of time have heard me say this: find your thing and fight for it like hell. Find your thing. It's so much. It starts as early as when our children are 2. So we've got plenty and ample opportunity, right, to do something. Find your thing and be committed to that thing. And we will chisel this thing away little by little, or we won't. I don't know, But the layers, to me, I just look at it, some of these statistics, like I almost did this podcast because every layer makes me feel more tired.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it's because we try to tackle everything. So don't. Find your thing.
I want to add to that real quick. The great Harambe, Egypt. We've been conversating a little bit back and forth on our post comments. I told him that as long as there are people who are still trying, there is hope, because I look at it from a long-term perspective. If it fails with us, something out what we did is going to resonate with those who have more strength than us, who are fresh. It's going to keep going until that light is spun completely out and you don't hear it. Mm-hmm. Then it's hopeless for not just our community, but for any other community and the oppressor itself. So I think it's very important, as you said, find your niche, most importantly, and keep digging into it, even if nobody else cares about it, because you care about it. It's like us musicians and writers say to each other, no one can tell you how to dress your baby.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody can tell you how to dress your baby. So dress it up, put it out in the world, and have faith.
Yeah. I'll say this really quick, and Regina, we can give you a last thought. We're running right up on 9 o'clock here. I would like for the underclass, the economic underclass of non-Black and non-colored people to think about this. Did I say that in a way that people understand? I didn't just want to say white people, but anyone who is not of color and is in a lower economic class, this is what I'd like for you to think about. If we weren't here, it would be you. That's it. Regina, trust it.
So you really want me to try to say something after that? I mean, like what?
Well, no,
that's all I can say is good night, y'all.
Bring the epilogue, Gina. Bring the epilogue, Gina.
If you had any last.
The last thing I would, in all seriousness, the last thing I really want to say to anybody who listens or who watches this via replay, don't be afraid to take ownership in charting the course of your family. Don't be afraid to make the sacrifice. Don't be afraid of what you don't know to improve the quality of life for your parent. The sheer definition of parenting is that it ain't about you no more, period. And you have to, we can have this dialogue all day about breaking the prison, the preschool to prison pipeline. We can have this dialogue all day about all the injustices that happen in our communities, in our cities. But if you don't have the courage to be the catalyst in your house, in your four walls, on your block, nothing is going to change, because change starts with you. Mm-hmm. Change starts with you. And especially because I really believe in my heart, after talking tonight, I really believe that so much of what's happening to the Black and brown children of this world are things that we're just afraid to speak out on. We're afraid to ask for help. We're afraid to ask for help. If your child is having anger management issues, ask for help. If your child is having an issue articulating how they feel, ask for help. If your child is even 3 years old and not talking, I need you to ask for help. And it's okay. It doesn't make you a bad parent. What it does make you is an amazing parent, because you got out of yourself and out of your own self-way long enough to care about this other life that has a longer life to live on this earth, possibly, than you. Don't be afraid to do it. I never, ever, when I realized after all the testing that my son went through, what I was dealing with, it so wasn't about Gina and Terrence no more. It just really, really was not. And I had an older child, so I had to figure out how to make sure she still stayed great. And I am so blessed that Morgan was an amazing big sister to TJ. She was amazing. And for so long, we thought Morgan, because Morgan is who she is, we just thought she was talking for her brother. TJ didn't have to say nothing because Morgan said it all, and they was 1 and 3. So, Morgan was very social at 3. She was, and so it took us a minute to realize it. But when we realized it as a family, we came together. And even to this day, I still have to rope my own mother in or his mother in to explain things about TJ, because my mom gets heated. She'll be like, Regina, Terrence answered me, blah, 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 blah. I said, Mama, what did you ask him? I asked him, did he like the shoes? And I said, well, Mama, what did he say? He said no. I said, Mama, well, why are you mad? She said, because he told me no. I said, oh, he was supposed to say, grandmother, thank you very much. I appreciate your taste. But that's not how my son is wired. TJ gonna give you the raw, skinny, black and white. Don't expect no fun and frivels. And even when he apologizes to you, you be looking at him like, you being a jerk right now, but he's really not. That's who he is. He'll be like, Mom, And it legit, Mom, I know I hurt you.
The main thing you just said is how
I am so sorry for that, Mom. Do you forgive me? And he means it. And he means it, but I know him. Do you know what I mean?
Right.
That's a part of Asperger. That sensitivity Geiger counter is, it's gone. Now he's smart as a whip. His IQ is higher than mine, but if you're looking for some warm fuzzy, baby, you better look somewhere else. But in the same breath, he taught his younger sister how to tie her shoe. He taught his younger sister how to ride a bike. He taught his younger sister how to read. Because I didn't put him away like he was some problem. I didn't put him away like he was a problem. He's not a problem.
Yeah.
They're an individual.
We have to make sure we do not put our children away like they're a problem.
Don't hide them. We're treating them like Boo Bradley.
Telling you, even if the teacher is telling you that, you said Boo Bradley. I cannot stand you. Y'all know this from the Mockingbird, How to Kill a Mockingbird, right?
Oh, okay.
Y'all know that?
I'm sorry. I'm sorry,
stop with these Woman Hills references. People don't know who the hell Boo Bradley is. That's one of my favorite books ever, To Kill a Mockingbird. I think we've covered as much of this in 2 hours as we can. I advise you to do. We are going to, since I launched this thing, really talk about creating, helping to create a parent advocacy group, or at least bringing some parents together who are interested in it and letting them, again, being the bridge to connect those people and letting them, because maybe what we are meant to do is be that catalyst, right? Where we bring people of like minds together, and then they can take what they want to do and form it elsewhere. We don't have to be in the middle of it. I keep listening. I've gone back and listened to some of our podcasts, and I think what we are becoming sort of is this connector. So we'll be spending the next year developing what that looks like for us. Continue to join us here at Back to Love. YouTube is going to become our place. So we as a group definitely need to start promoting that people need into YouTube and catch us just like they would on Facebook. We'll start promoting that. Our next podcast next week is our shop talk. Oh shoot, wait a minute. Does anybody remember? We got to hold the rest of the month planned. Let me see. Let me go into my Gmail because I do want to give people a quick rundown on that. So next week, what is shop talk? Oh, we talking about bonnets, but we're not talking about bonnets like y'all been talking about bonnets. We're not getting ready to be tearing people down about their bonnets. I'm gonna give you guys the exact, so that y'all can hear it, so that y'all not like, we don't want to hear about the bonnets. It's not what y'all think it is. So let me see. I know we moved everything. Does anybody remember? Okay, here it is for the shop talk. So next week there won't be one. July 4th. It's the holiday. We understand that we won't be having one. On July 11th, we'll be doing the standards of appearance, is what we're calling it. And so really it's the double standards, the double standard appearance. And it really is stemming from the whole bonnet. And the question is, are women judged more harshly on their appearance than men are, right? So again, I think we've done really well with shop talks in that we are talking about the same controversial issues that we read on Facebook every day, but we are talking about them from a place of love, and there is no attacking and there is no accusation. So we just unpack. We just talk about what the people are talking about and we give our opinions about them. And then on the 18th, we'll be talking about the spirituality in the modern world. So that is, we'll be doing a community affair resource, and we really are building that. That's going to be in October. It will be in conjunction with HIT, and that is my sister Mo's baby. On the 16th, please come out. It'll be probably, I'm so excited for this open mic. I just feel like it's been so long since we've been in a venue that's completely committed to the
I wish I could be there.
Poetry. and not just the open mic. On the 17th, she's doing Regal Rhythms, which is a slam. And so same place at the Annex on Hamilton Avenue. Really check out Hit the Mic.
Actually, it's called the Oasis, not the Annex anymore. It's called the Oasis now.
The Oasis. It's called the Oasis. My heart keeps calling it the Annex. I see it in my mind. I see the Annex. So yeah, we definitely, I'm collabing with them. People are not happy because I'm not coming back to certain places for the open mic. I'm like, nope. I found a new home. It's all good. So I'm looking forward to it. Please continue to hang out with Back to Love. We got so many things coming up this year. And as we build, we would love for you all to continue to build with us. Enjoy your 4th of July, however you enjoy it, man, whatever. I'm going to be at the pool. I ain't celebrating independence. I'm going to be at the pool getting black.
Who you going to be at?
I came back black. Y'all see that?
You want to be. I'm not going there with you, but what pool you going to be at?
I'm so excited for this little tan. So I got to go finish my tan next Sunday.
You say so?
Regina's pool.
Well, if you don't stop it.
I'm darker than you.
Right, no, you ain't.
Whatever. You can't even face me. Yes, I am.
And both of us, both of y'all can go sit down.
We will be taking a break next week, but please, July 11th for the shop talk, and July 16th and 17th at the Oasis for Hit the Mic and Regal Rhythms. We love y'all as always. We welcome you all back to love.
Peace.
Second, guys, let me stop the recording.
Take care, everybody.
Take us completely off of YouTube.
We're done.
And did you take us completely off of YouTube?
No, it says live on YouTube still.
Take us off of YouTube.